Hey everybody, John Felt here. This is the weekly weather briefing for August 23rd. Hey, I'm seeing some signs of early fall, and after a very humid and hot summer, that's relief and very welcome to many people. I'm going to talk about that and more in this week's briefing. Let's get started. Well, first off, here are the weather impacts this week. We have some really hot weather in the central U.S., and that's going to be moving into the western U.S. as we continue through the week. As far as excessive rain, there could be some pockets of heavy rain here and there. Now you can see where we have the current hot weather right here. These are the action spots, and we also have some flooding in this region right here. So quite a bit of hot weather in the western U.S. Now, what about some rain last week? Well, it was not a whole lot. The southeast U.S. had some scattered showers and storms, but the most significant rain was in the upper Mississippi River Valley right here. That put some water into the rivers here, and the rivers are getting a little bit low on the Mississippi, so that was needed, but not much elsewhere. Temperatures last week were quite hot in many parts of the central U.S., and like I said, that hottest weather has shifted into the western U.S., or it is shifting into the western U.S. at this time. Now, anything in yellow did make it into the 95 to 100 degree range. All this orange here, look at this. This was 100 degrees or hotter. Desert Southwest, of course, so that made it well above 100 degrees, but all this area here, quite hot last week. Now, one sign of fall is we're starting to get some drier air here. This drier air is going to be working down to the south. It's going to displace these 60 dew points. So we have in large parts of the central U.S. some really dry air on the way and some cooler air. But the western U.S., and especially as we go through the week, the Pacific Northwest, some really hot weather, including some Category 4 extreme heat index readings in Washington and Oregon. Now, as far as rivers go, that upper Midwest rain has brought a few of the tributaries into minor and even a few into moderate flooding. And we also have, due to the tide action and the enhanced inflows from Aaron, we also have some minor to moderate flooding along the coast. Okay, so let's dig into the forecast here. And right now, either you're under this area of low pressure, and that's cooler weather, or you're under this area of high pressure, this ridge of high pressure, and that's unusually hot weather. And that's why the Pacific Northwest and other parts of the West are going to be really hot. Now, the middle part of the week, this area of low pressure pulls off to the east, so large parts of the eastern, central, and eastern U.S. cooler weather. Some really hot weather in Canada that's going to probably get the wildfires going again. And by the end of the week, you can see here lots of blue, and that means cooler weather, but we still have in Canada this ridge of high pressure. Okay, so what does that mean as far as temperature? Well, look at that big blue blob, and that's much cooler than normal weather. That's that first touch of fall. That goes right through the end of the month into early September. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest is really going to have an unusually hot week. Now, if we take a look at the first week of September, you can see temperatures modify and they come back. We don't have as much of the extreme too hot or too cold, and it looks like it's generally fairly close to normal or maybe a little bit on the warm side. Now, look at this heat index here. You can see as we go through the week, Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday, that heat gradually tapers off in the Pacific Northwest, but right through maybe Wednesday, very hot conditions. So the story last week was Hurricane Aaron. It became a Category 5 hurricane right in this region here. Right now it's a post-tropical system moving away from the U.S. Anything this week? Well, there are a couple areas out in the Atlantic Basin. This system here, higher probability for development. If it does develop, it's going to move up to the north. I think that's far enough out. It won't give much, nearly as much of the wave or wind action along the East Coast. This system here, if it would develop, it has the potential of continuing to work in this direction, but ensembles right now just sort of show it maybe even weakening and sort of staying well to the south. So the bottom line, I do not see any tropical impacts this week. So where will the impacts be? Well, South Florida, some heavy rain. But take a look at this, parts of Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, some very heavy rain, 2 to 5 inches of rain in those areas. Elsewhere, it looks pretty quiet across the nation. Now, what about the extended outlook? Well, here's the week 2, and you can see that lingering cooler air. And as far as rain goes, it looks like a pretty good chance of rain in the northwest U.S. So maybe after a very hot week, we can get some rain in that area, and that'll keep things a little bit cooler. And we go in weeks 3 and 4. You can see here the first taste of fall goes back to normal weather as we get into weeks 3 and 4. So anyway, like I started the briefing, parts of the nation, the west and the northwest, really hot conditions. And then large parts of the central U.S., it looks like some pleasant early fall weather. And then right in that Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, some heavy rain. That's this week's briefing. Take care.